Now let's continue. It was an evening painted con looming storms when panic set in. Lily and Jake were gone. The air thickened as Sarah's breath quickened, each call for their names echoing in the heavy silence. Shadows danced in her periphery as dread crawled into every corner of her mind. The once welcoming street transformed into a maze of terror. She raced towards Mr. Thompson's house, each step fueled by pure desperation. Darkened windows loomed before her like the maw of a great beast. His door creaked open, a twisted grin greeting her. No longer was he the benign neighbor. Something darker simmered beneath his friendly facade. As her heart thundered, adrenaline coursing through her veins, she understood the truth. Mr. Thompson knew exactly where her children were. It was time to strip the mask away, confront the genuine horror that lurked nearby. Would she expose the evil, or be consumed by the darkness dwelling within their new home? The air crackled around Sarah as Mr. Thompson stared down at her, his grin widening like a crescent moon. The shadows danced restlessly behind him, painting dark shapes on the walls as if the very house was alive. "Looking for someone?" he asked, voice smooth and mocking. "Where are my kids?" Sarah demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. She wasn't backing down, not now. Panic surged through her veins, amplifying her instincts. "You know where they are." Mr. Thompson leaned closer, his face now inches from hers, and for a fleeting moment she caught a glimpse of something dark flickering behind his eyes, a predatory glint. They're just playing. Children are so curious, you know. They wonder. Her heart raced. Curious? This wasn't curiosity. It was something sinister, born from the darkness that clung to this man. Shoving past him, she burst into the house, desperate. Dim light flickered above, as though sparking with her anxiety, illuminating remnants of a life long abandoned. "Jake! Lily!" she called, her voice cracking. Each echo bled into the stillness, swallowed by the oppressive silence. The air was heavy and stale, carrying with it a stench of decay that hung in her throat. In moments she found herself in the living room, her pulse hammering as she noticed a small door at the far end. A chill crawled over her. It was slightly ajar, inviting and ominous. It had to lead somewhere. She could sense it. Wrapping her fingers around the door handle, she hesitated, recalling the journal, the warnings, the stories. "Don't go down there," a voice whispered in her mind. Yet she couldn't turn back. Not without her children. She pushed the door open, the creaking wood sounding like a scream. Blackness sprawled out before her, thick and suffocating. Shaking, Sarah stepped forward. With each step, the air grew colder, tightening its grip around her chest. As she descended into the darkness, the door creaked shut behind her with a resounding click. System. They snaked around her, piercing the hope that ignited in her chest moments ago. "Get off me!" she gasped, the floor slick with something cold and wet. Panic formed a knot in her throat, making it hard to breathe. She pushed herself closer to the door, heart slamming against her rib cage like a frenzied prisoner trying to escape. The creature's laughter ricocheted in the room, an echo of something both familiar and deeply unsettling. "Mommy, you'll come back. They all do," it taunted, each word slithering with menace. She reached for the door handle, fingers trembling. The creature lunged again, its twisted grin stretching impossibly wide. "Don't you want to play?" it hissed, the words dripping like poison. "No!" With a surge of strength, Sarah grasped the handle, yanked it down, and pushed through the door, tumbling into the darkness beyond. She landed on the other side with a heavy thud, gasping for air. But the moment she collected herself, the shadows hissed and writhed behind her, searching for a way out, a way back. The door slammed shut, a deafening finality echoing in the dimly lit space around her. Sarah stood, heart racing, panic flooding her senses. She blinked against the gloom, trying to find her bearings. It felt cooler here, almost refreshing, but the air was thick with something that twisted her stomach. A low, rhythmic sound rumbled, and she turned to find herself in a long, narrow corridor lined with doors, each one blackened with age and mystery. "Lily?" she called softly, her voice trembling as it bounced off the walls. "Mommy!" A distant, muffled voice echoed from somewhere deep within the corridor. "Lily!" She stumbled forward, vulnerability morphing into determination. But as she moved, the oppressive shadows pressed closer, coiling around her like a shroud. Another door on her left caught her attention. It stood slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling through. She approached cautiously, every instinct screaming for her to run, yet she pressed on. "Mommy, help!" The voice was growing stronger, clearer. Without thought, she rushed to the door and pushed it open. The room was empty, except for a single chair in the center, facing a wall covered with drawings. As she stepped inside, she felt the air shimmer with a chill. The drawings, scribbled in dark, frantic lines, depicted children, her children, their faces twisted in fear and anguish. Each image dripped with pain, each scrawled line tearing at the fabric of her heart. She recognized them, their eyes, the same glow, the same shadows. "Oh God," she whispered, suddenly feeling very small. Then, from behind her, a soft giggle broke the silence. She spun around, heart in her throat, but the room was vacant. "Just one more game, Mommy." "Who's there?" Sarah shouted, the sound echoing like a death knell. The shadows shifted and coalesced, forming into shapes that danced along the edges of her vision. They reached out, 1,000 cold hands sweeping toward her, eager and relentless. Come and play. No, she thought, she wouldn't let them take her too. She backed away slowly, but the shapes lunged closer, their whispers growing into a cacophony of torment. "Mommy, help!" Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, locking her in a prison of darkness. Shadows spiraled around her, and the giggling grew louder, a chaotic chorus of twisted, cheerful malice. With every ounce of strength, Sarah narrowed her focus. She needed a plan, a way not just to find her children, but to escape this madness. But as the whispers crescendoed, she suddenly felt a flicker of familiarity, a sensation of being watched, not just by those monstrous shadows, but by something far more sinister, lurking just beyond reach. What waited for her in the dark, and would she dare to confront it? Sarah's breath caught in her chest, each inhale growing shallow as the walls seemed to close in around her. The shadows pulsed with life, tendrils of darkness reaching toward her, seeking her warmth, her essence. Panic gushed through her like a tempest. Should she scream, fight, run? The chilling giggles wrapped around her like barbed wire. "Let's play, Mommy." It was a childish tone, sweet and innocent, yet dripping with malice. The laughter echoed in her mind, twisting memories of laughter shared with her own children into something grotesque. "Where are you?" she cried, her voice trembling. Silence swallowed her words, but then, somewhere in that oppressive dark, a whisper slithered. "You'll never find us." The air thickened, pulling at her skin as she stood paralyzed. The walls seemed to pulse and breathe, with shadows thick enough to claw at her sanity. She spun around. There had to be a way out, a way to escape this nightmare. With determination sparking anew, she slammed her palm against the door behind her, but it held firm, unyielding. Sarah gritted her teeth, fighting the panic threatening to drown her. She could not succumb, not now. Well then, her voice was a challenge, shaky yet defiant. "If you want to play, let's play." She focused her thoughts, trying to summon the courage that had kept her going this far. "Show yourself." The shadows quivered at her boldness, recoiling like a wounded animal before rushing in again, a dark wave crashing through the room. Suddenly, a flicker of light shimmered against one of the other doors lining the corridor, the one at the far end. It flickered desperately, like a moth drawn to an unseen flame. Perhaps that door held her answer. The children's cries were there, or perhaps freedom. But as she started to move, the giggles crescendoed into maniacal laughter, urging her to stay, to surrender. "Mommy, don't go! We're having fun!" With every step, the shadows curled tighter around her legs, dragging her back, fighting her resolve. "Get off me!" she screamed. Panic clawed at her again. She had to stay calm. "Children!" she shouted, her voice trembling. "Where are you?" In response, a dark wave swept through the hall, y con él veio chilling giggles again, echoing, taunting. Just a little further, Mommy. The source was two doors at the end of the hall. One was made of dark wood, ancient and warped, and the other shimmered faintly with a ghostly light. It called to her, flickering like a beacon in the fog of her dread. Choose wisely. The shadows hissed from the corners, the sound wrapping around her like an icy snake. Standing before them, Sarah could feel the weight of a decision pushing down on her, an invisible force pressing her towards one door. The giggles crescendoed, wrapping around her like vines, clinging tighter as her doubts grew. A battle waged in her mind. Could she trust the light? Could she? In that moment she recalled her children's faces, bright with laughter. They needed her. She had to pick one. Gripping the handle of the dimly lit door, she hesitated, then released it. Instead, she turned toward the shadowed door, swallowing her fear as she grasped the handle firmly. Here goes. As she opened it, a gust of frigid air rushed out, swirling around her like a storm. It sucked the warmth from her bones and sent a shiver down her spine. She stepped through, ready for anything. A dimly lit room stretched before her, decorated in broken toys and faded photographs, ghosts of forgotten lives. But just past the threshold, a presence rushed at her, cold and suffocating. "Mommy, you chose wrong." The voice was playful, yet the malice dripped from every word. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, sealing her inside. The shadows morphed, taking on figures of children she recognized from the corridors, her own. They lunged forward, hands outstretched, eyes filled with unending despair. "Why did you leave us?" they cried, voices merging into an anguished symphony. Terror held her captive, feeding the shadows that danced around her. The light from the door dimmed, leaving her in a void of fear. Sarah fought against it, grief stabbing sharply at her heart. She had to reach them, to save them, but how? Suddenly, a sinister chuckle echoed from the depths of the room. "Do you think you can save them? Time is running out." What were they losing? What was the consequence of her choice? "Sarah!" The time froze as familiar, desperate voices reached her. "Help us!" Desperation built within her, mixing with the cold dread now suffocating the air. She couldn't lose them again. She couldn't. But suddenly an overwhelming truth lunged forward, ready to consume her. What if it was too late? Before the realization could sink in, the shadows surged forward, and in a flurry of cold hands, the darkness swallowed her whole. What was left to grasp? Had she made a deadly mistake, and how could she possibly make it right? A darkness tightened around Sarah, thick as fog, is suffocating like a vice. She struggled against the coldness, her breath reduced to shallow gasps as the shadows twirled and wailed, echoing the despair of her children. Their cries, once sweet and innocent, morphed into a nightmarish cacophony, a relentless chorus of sorrow. "Mommy, help us!" The plea pierced her heart, raw and searing. The faces of her children flickered like flames in the blackness, longing for her embrace, yet twisted by despair. Fear twisted in her stomach, an inescapable knot tightening with every heartbeat. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice cracking, swallowed by the glimmering shadows. "Only the truth." The malicious chuckle rippled through the darkness, making her skin crawl. "What did you leave behind, Sarah?" She staggered back, memories chasing her, memories of laughter split by their separation, cursed by an unjust world. Hadn't she fought diligently to keep them safe, to protect them? A tear slipped down her cheek, but she wiped it away, anger swelling within her. Bracing herself, she turned, facing the onslaught of her lost children, their eyes wide with a mixture of hope and anguish. "I love you," she cried, hands outstretched. "I'll find a way to save you." "Love doesn't matter here." The shadows twisted and coiled like serpents, dancing around her. They mocked her, snickering at her pain and sorrow. "You will still pay the price." With every word, the air around her grew heavier, and shadows surged forward, rippling through her like water. Panic gripped her. She couldn't let them trap her like this. She couldn't let them take her children from her again. "Not again!" she screamed, the heat of desperation igniting a fire deep within her soul. Suddenly, a flicker of light shone from her left, a glimmer in the depths of this forsaken nightmare. She turned towards it, heart racing. "Mommy!" The voices resonated again. They came from beyond the shifting shadows, where the light danced invitingly. Sarah surged forward, every ounce of her being pulling her towards that beam of hope. The ghostly light grew brighter, illuminating the faces of her children, nestled within the darkness, their figures woven seamlessly into the fabric of despair, but yearning for freedom. With the shadows clawing at her feet, she pushed against them, determined. "Hold on! I'm coming!" she cried, reaching for them, fingers stretching wide. As she collided with the warmth of the light, waves of brightness enveloped her, sending the shadows screeching into retreat. She felt a rush of power surge through her. The air crackled, electrifying, and for the first time she wasn't just a lost mother. She was a force to be reckoned with. "Leave us alone!" she bellowed, shaking the darkness like a rattle. "I will not lose you again." The shadows recoiled, their taunts turning to a shrill screech. The ghostly light illuminated her resolve, pushing against the shadows that yanked at her, tugging her down. "Mommy!" Her children's voices surged again, entwined with the raging winds of fear. "Please!" Tears streaming down her face, she felt the light solidify, formando un barrier between her y a darkness. But the shadows weren't done. "Time is running out," they hissed, their chilling whispers twisting through the air, laden with threat. Then, suddenly, the shadows lunged. The barrier flickered and pulsed, weakening. Would it be enough?
Hold on! She grasped her children's hands, feeling their warmth coursing through her, but everything felt fragile, like a thread on the verge de snapping, ready to plunge her back into the abyss. Then the darkness whispered again, more sinister than before. What if we claim those you love? Fear ripped through her. Would she have to make a choice that would cost her family their lives? But the light glimmered once more, urging her on, daring her to push back. What lay ahead beyond the tide of shadows? And with that question echoing in her mind, Sarah felt her grip loosen, the shadows gnashing at her, renewed fury swelling. "Choose!" they roared, and in that instant she was left deciding between saving her children or perhaps sacrificing everything to fight back. The room around her trembled, the clash of light and dark echoing as the darkness surged, and she gripped her children's hands tighter, ready for the next desperate fight. What could she possibly do to reclaim them? Would her love be enough to defy the encroaching nightmare? The tremors of the clash between light and darkness reverberated through Sarah, each pulse sending a jolt of fear straight to her core. Time felt distorted, as though time itself was caught in a vice, twisting and stretching painfully. The shadows screamed and writhed, their whispers cutting through her thoughts like knives. "Choose!" they hissed again, their voices merging into a monstrous chorus. She closed her eyes, trying to shield herself from the onslaught of torment. A whirlwind of memories swirled around her, giggles during playtime, the smell of her children's hair after a bath, the way they looked when they danced. Images that filled her heart with warmth, now twisted into nightmares, rotting spectres of what they'd been. Then, suddenly, the shadows lunged. They thickened, a swirling mass of dread, clawing at her, desperate to pull her into their grasp. Sarah felt their icy tendrils slither around her ankles, biting into her skin like frost. The barrier flickered, dimming as doubt seeped in. "Please, not again." The words were a breathless murmur, ripped from her throat.
Suddenly, from the depths of the darkness, a red glow flickered, a reminder of something buried deep within her, something powerful. Would she dare uncover it? Or would the shadows drag her back into the void, stolen peace crushed beneath their wrath? The ground beneath her trembled, and in that split second Sarah felt the tension in the air crack like a whip. The fissure gaped wide, a swirling vortex of darkness, where a heartbeat of choice shimmered faintly just beyond reach. Voices rose higher, their dreadful chants echoing in her mind, drowning her in despair. "Reveal yourself," Sarah shouted, her voice carrying an urgency she barely felt. The crimson glow pulsated again, fiery and inviting, yet tinged with uncertainty. She wavered, entranced by its allure. Maybe it could save her. The shadows coiled closer, stretching sinister limbs, knotting themselves into thick knots of malice. "Dare you embrace what lies within?" they hissed, their breaths cold against her skin, tantalizing her with whispers of old secrets and concealed power. "No, I will not choose you,"
she screamed, spinning away from the taunts, fueling her spirit with defiance. The warmth of the light surged through her veins, steadying her trembling hands as she clutched it tighter. You will not win. With each desperate thought of her children, Sarah felt the fabric of reality shimmer. A blinding flash enveloped her, the light breaking apart the shadows like glass shattering underfoot. The cacophony of screams faded, replaced by a haunting stillness that swallowed her whole. In the silence, she found herself standing not on the brink of a chasm, but in a twisted version of her living room. The furniture was broken, and items scattered like remnants of a storm. Shadows flickered in the corners, creeping across the walls, whispering secrets of despair and longing. "Welcome home, dear Sarah." The voice felt all too familiar, a chilling echo of her children. Panic soared, swallowing her whole. "Where are they?" she demanded, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. "What have you done to them?" "Nothing yet," the shadows murmured with a sinister delight, crawling in closer, filling the air with dread. "We have you, and soon your love will follow, if you let it." As the edges of the room darkened, silhouettes of her children appeared, faces twisted in anguish. A shiver of agony coursed through Sarah, her breath hitching as their eyes locked onto hers, brimming with fear and sadness. "Mommy, help us!" they cried, a heart-wrenching plea that cut sharper than any knife. "No, I won't abandon you!" she shouted, a surge of energy rippling outward as she stepped toward them, determination pumping in her chest. Yet just as she lunged forward, the shadows lunged too, sealing the distance. Their muzzled voices clawed at her mind. To save them, you must face the truth, your darkest fears.
System. System. Sarah shouted, pulling them close into her arms, wrapping around them in un protective embrace. When the swirling maelstrom faded, they stood back in their living room, the sun shining brightly through the windows. Light washed over them, banishing all remnants of darkness. "Mommy," Jake whispered, looking up with wide eyes, joy mingling with confusion. "I thought I lost you," Sarah said, wiping tears from her eyes. "But you're safe now. We're safe now." The warmth of relief coursed through her as she held them tight, feeling the soft beats of their hearts, knowing they were free from the shadows that had haunted them. "Everything is going to be okay, I promise," she whispered, tightening her grip. With each heartbeat, the echoes of fear faded, and they stood together in the light, a family reunited against all odds. As they pulled back, eyes sparkling with newfound hope, Sarah knew this moment would define them, a testament to resilience, strength, and the undeniable power of love. And as for Mr. Thompson, the man who had instigated such chaos, he would be but a distant memory, a cautionary tale wrapped in shadows best left forgotten. "Let's go outside and play," Lily grinned, tugging at Sarah's hand, her laughter ringing bright and clear, the shadows retreating like a fading nightmare. "Yes, let's live," Sarah replied, stepping into the sun, leaving behind the darkness that had once claimed them. They stepped fully into the warmth, hand in hand, ready to welcome whatever the future held.
Now, dear friends, if you felt the thrill of this story, don't let it end here. You need to subscribe now to catch exclusive stories just like this one. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithms alive and thriving, and flood the comment section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion.